Hey everybody! In this bonus step, what we're going to be doing is setting up a projectile trap. It's going to fire those same projectiles that the enemies use that we set up in the enemy month, if you've got there already. And yeah, this is going to be a trap that's activated by walking through it, or in some of the other bonus steps, you're going to make some alternative ways to activate things, and you can use one of those as well. So all we need to do is set up the game object itself that's going to contain the trap, and then we're going to use a script that we provided to handle actually firing the projectile and all that stuff. So to start, what we need to do is go grab the two things we're going to fire our projectile out of. So there's this wall trap object here in the project panel. You go to Resources, Prefabs, Weapons. You can see that here as well. So we're going to be going to that weapons folder and looking for this wall trap object. Go ahead and drag one out into your scene wherever you see fit. And we're going to raise that up in the air, and then we're going to bring up our rotation gizmo with the E key, and we're going to use the blue circle and hold the Control or Command key to rotate it 90 degrees until we see that it's nice and upright. You can also just go up here and set the rotation to either 90 or negative 90, depending on which side you're on, because we are going to have two of these. So we're going to move this one over, and then I'm going to press Control or Command D to duplicate this one. We're going to bring it about as wide as we want this trap to be. We are most likely, when we place this in the level, going to have to adjust the position of these. So where they are isn't super important right now. We just want to make sure there's enough room for our player to run between them. But we want to set the rotation in the Z-axis for the other side to be the opposite. So this one's currently 90. We set it to negative 90. Now they are facing each other. What we're going to do next is create an empty object on both of these that's going to serve as our firing point. So we're going to right click on wall trap. We're just going to name this fire point, just like that. And then we're going to get close to our thing here, and we're going to move it out so it's just outside of this little hole here. And then same thing on the other side. We're going to rename this to fire point, just like that. And then, yes, we're going to drag this out to the side. We do want our fire point to be facing the other fire point. And what I mean by that is we need this blue arrow to face the other side. So if we look, currently the blue arrow is facing to the right, and that's what the script is going to use to determine the direction that our projectile travels. So we need to rotate this 90 degrees along the red arrow, which is going to be the x-axis. So we're going to type 90 here. Oh, we're going to see that flip the wrong way, so we'll use negative 90 and get that facing the right direction. Alternatively, you can just use your rotation gizmo. Just keep in mind we do want to make sure that the blue arrow is facing the other side. So if we check the other fire point, we'll probably see that that one is also facing the wrong direction. So we're going to give this 90 degrees, negative 90, and we'll see that they are now facing each other. Now what we want to do is we want to make another empty game object, and we're going to try to place this in the middle of the two. So what I recommend doing is just making it a child of one of your two traps so that it spawns it in the middle of that trap. We're going to name this one Dart Trap, like this, and then we're going to drag it out and then move it to the middle. I also recommend making sure there's no rotation on this. So this should have either the 90 or negative 90 rotation that we applied to the wall traps. So we're going to set that to 0 so the green arrow is facing upright. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. Just try to get it close. And then what we're going to do is make our wall trap, or both of our wall traps here, children of the dart trap. So now if we select dart trap, we can move both at the same time. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add a component, and we're going to add component, and we're going to look for a box collider. We want to make this a trigger, and then we want to extend the width of this box. We want this width or this box to take up all the space between our two wall traps here. So we can do that by adjusting the size value on the box collider. So if I just click and drag to the right, you'll see we will do that until that reaches both sides. Now, the exact number here will probably be different depending on the space between your wall traps, and especially when you get into placing this in the world, you might want it to be bigger or smaller, so you can adjust that size accordingly. The main important thing here is that we just cover all the space between the traps and that this is set to trigger. And then finally what we need to do is go to add component once again, and we're going to search for, I think it's dart trap is what it's called. There we go. So we can start by dragging our fire points in. So the order doesn't matter here. We just want to make sure both fire points are used. So we expand our wall traps and drag fire point in. We can set the damage and projectile speed for our the projectile we're firing here. So the damage is obviously going to control how much damage it deals, and the projectile speed is going to be how fast the thing moves when it's shot out. So I'm going to do 10 damage, and I'm going to choose a projectile speed of 5. Finally, what we need to do is then just assign our projectile prefab. So in the weapons folder, there's that spike ball prefab. We're going to click and drag that onto the spike ball small. I would also recommend double checking the prefab. I know there are varying versions of the project, and if you click it and you don't see the rigid body or the sphere collider or the projectile script, you will want to make sure you add those, and you can do that by hitting the add component, do rigid body, or you can do the add component, and then projectile, and then you can set the damage there, and then you also need that sphere collider, and then you'll need to make sure that's checked to is trigger. Also, if you do have to add the rigid body, again, you shouldn't have to, but it's a possibility. You also want to make sure that use gravity is not checked. But yeah, once you've got all that set up, the last thing we need to do is just make this into a prefab. So you can click and drag the dart trap icon and drag that into your weapons folder, and now you have a prefab to play with. So go ahead and place that somewhere in your world. Again, you can adjust the size and the distance between these wall traps after you place it somewhere that you find appropriate. But I would place that in your dungeon scene, and then go ahead and save that scene and do your check setup.